Yo, what's happening, guys? This is Brian Barney, your co-host for Eastman's Bowhunting Journal. So, just going to do a quick intro and we'll get into the podcast. So this is an expo recording, and we have Warren and David on from Raised Hunting, just a couple go-getters. Their background is really in whitetails and big whitetails, but recently they've dove headfirst into Western hunting, mule deer and elk. So made for a great conversation. Dan Pickar is not here on the intro, but he is in the podcast. So we'll get right into it. Just want to thank a sponsor. So us over at Eastman's Bowhunting Journal have a new sponsor. It's G5 Arrows. Started shooting these Mark 203s, so they're a 4mm arrow, come in at a great weight. Their components are so good. So they've got that front end outsert and then the ballistic collar that I really like, that really protects the transition from carbon shaft to that metal outsert, so it just makes a bomb-proof arrow. The nocks have they're a really good nock that have a great grip to the string, which is not something we think about a lot, but really it's the connection to the string and a connection to the bow from the arrow. So to get a real good fit on the string is really important for accuracy, and G5 nailed it with these arrows. Also, these arrows are a carbon fiber weave, so they're really strong. Haven't been able to bust one yet. It's just going to be a great arrow for me for this season and beyond, and really pumped to have them on board with Eastman's Bowhunting Journal. So go check them out. I really think they stand up to some of the best arrows out there. Again, I'm shooting the Mark 203, and it's a G5 arrow. So, this is another recording from the expo. Make sure to check out everything we have going on at Eastman's, my other podcast, Eastman's Elevated. Check out our Beyond the Grid, the magazines, everything like that. And Dan and I really appreciate the support from you guys, being able to get this podcast off the ground and bring you good episodes every couple weeks. So this is a great one. So Warren and David from Raised Hunting. I'm your co-host, Brian Barney. Eastman's Bowhunting Journal. Here we go. So we're able to get the guys from Raised Hunting on, and really happy to have them on the podcast. So, we have Warren and David. So thanks for joining us, guys.
No, thanks for having us. We're glad to be here.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for working with the moving schedule. It's a bit chaotic here at the expo.
For you guys, we've been chill. We haven't had to do much. So
yeah, we don't have a booth here or
minutes,
anything, so we've been kind of relaxed. You know, it's been kind of a nice deal.
Good for you.
Got to actually look at some of the vendors and things like that and get to, stand there and talk to an outfitter for a few minutes where we normally don't get to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're in a booth and you're glued to it. And so it's a little break for us.
Yeah. I really like this show. I really like the fact there's like no flea market stuff. You know, they do a good job on making sure that everything is hunting related or at least in some capacity without a dill pickle stand every other aisle.
Oh, you didn't see the dill pickle stand out there, huh?
I'm sure there probably is one.
There is one. I actually tried one.
Of course.
Yeah, it is. It's such a good show. It's like so nice to have those face-to-face connection with people that we have on the podcast or people that we work with, and also people that consume our videos and the podcast. It's like nice to put a face to the name, or you just kind of put this podcast out there in the ethos, and you hear a little feedback here and there, but it's really nice to hear the people that it affects.
Oh,
for sure.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I bet it's been good for you guys too, like people that really enjoy your videos and get a lot out of it. Like it's real informational, which is great.
Yeah. Well, we get that on our podcast all the time, which we're always like, we don't really feel like we're talking that informational, and they're like, we really appreciate what you guys are talking about and stuff. And we're like, it's because it's me, him, and my brother too.
Oh, okay.
And, so it's really like just three buffoons talking.
It sounds like our podcast.
Yeah. And we're like, oh, well, we're glad you learned something. I don't know that's not always what we were expecting, but as long as they did, that's good. It's cool to talk to them, though.
It's hard to fathom how they get anything out of like entertainment wise or education wise, because most of the time it's a pretty big argument, and I'm playing referee most of the time is what's going on. So
no, last two you were in it. You and Easton were
that's true. Me and Easton were at it the last time. Easton just has an attitude.
He does.
It's good that we didn't bring him here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's always tough with family, right? It's like blood is so thick, but it's like you also know how to get on each other's nerves too, or press each other's buttons. I'm sure with the two boys, you had your hands. It's not the first time you played referee, I bet.
No, but it's funny. We are that family that it's okay for us to give each other a boatload of crap, but don't mess with one of us because you're going to get the other two.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? You can tell him and his brother will be at each other's throat, but by God, if you come after Easton, you better watch out because Warren's right behind you.
Mm-hmm.
So no, but it's good. I mean, and so we all bring a different dynamic when it comes to hunting. And this year was kind of a really cool year because Easton actually got to elk hunt for the first time ever and killed his first bull. And Warren was running the camera with him. So he's right beside his brother. I'm calling. And so, I mean, I don't know that other people get to do stuff like that. I've always said that hunting has a special place because you get to go out there and do that with your kid, where like if you play football or if you're in ballet, you got to watch them from a stage, or you watch them from the stadium. But, in this year for the three of us to be there and do that, it was something super special, really, really special.
Yeah. Especially like you try to explain. Easton had gone on elk hunts from when we lived in Montana, but he was still a little kid at the time. So he never actually got to, he'd been pretty close to quite a few elk, but he never got to be the shooter or anything. And so you're trying to explain to him, all those things. Like one thing I kept telling him is he was really worried about the range for whatever reason. I was like, all your pins are going to fit in his vitals, like just make sure they're all there and let him rip, as long as he's not shooting 60, 70 yards. And he was like, I thought you were full of crap until that bull was there. And he was like, I was confused for a minute because he was like, they were all right there. I was like, dude, if you're 20 and you're 60, you're in the vitals. Let it go. Don't be thinking about it.
Yep.
So
it's a big target.
Yeah. And so I think for him, that when he actually got to experience it all himself, it was exactly how you guys described it. Because, anytime you tell somebody about elk hunting, you can't accurately describe what it feels like, especially when you have a big bull screaming at your face. It's way different in person.
It is so thrilling. It's such an exciting way to hunt, and then it's so cool that you guys are able to do it as a family like that. And I know, like we have relationships with our dad. My dad, I work with him in the construction company, and then we recreate together. He loves to fly fish, but that quality time that we're able to spend together is so special, And so, it's pretty fun. We're not best friends all the time. Of course, there's a few heated arguments here and there, but it's a good thing. And for you guys to be able to embark on like a Western adventure is really cool. So like, tell the audience about raised hunting, how you guys got started. You guys mentioned the podcast, the videos, some of the stuff you guys put out. If you can, just give me like a short synopsis about raised hunting.
It's hard to do it in a short synopsis, but I'll do the best I can. So it started when these guys were born, basically. I had started filming. I worked for Primos Hunting Calls as a pro staffer back in 2002, 2003. That's when I started with them. And I convinced my wife when we were Warren would have been before he was born, I guess. I used that as an excuse to buy the first camera. I was kind of I was already into hunting and fishing big time, but I was now getting into kind of filming stuff. And so anyhow, we bought a camera and I started filming some of this stuff. And then
for the kids, right?
That's what I convinced her. Yeah, exactly. We needed to capture the kids,
Yeah.
And then the kids grew into, they were going with me. And so anyhow, long story short, what ended up happening was one day Primos approached me. I had killed killed an elk. And someone told him that, hey, David's got some video, you ought to take a look at this elk shot. And sure enough, they called me and said, can we use that? And I was like, sure. I was only, when I'm talking about filming, I was filming just for fun, filming us going fishing, filming us going hunting. And people would ask me, what do you do with it? Nothing, just like home videos, and stuff like that. So when Primos used it, I was like, well, we got something here. If they're going to use it on television, why couldn't we? But it was another 10 years probably before I realized one day I asked Warren, I said, hey, do me a favor, sit down and see how many kills. Warren was probably 16, 17 when you sat down in Whitefish and started counting up all the.
No, it was in Great Falls.
Oh, was it in Great Falls?
Yeah, I was like 10 or 11.
Yeah. So anyhow, I started to ask him, how many kills have we actually acquired, or close calls, incidents where we had animals right there. And he comes back with 148. And I was like, 148, how did we acquire all this stuff? So long story short, I had a couple of different people that I talked with in the industry and said, we think we've got a lot of footage. We'd like to do something with it. And we met a guy named Adam Jordison with Modern Legacy Productions. And he took a look at what we were doing. Me and him sat down and said, look, I'd like to tell a story about hunting, not tell a story about the hunt, meaning, not, hey, this is where we went hunting. This is what we ate that day. This is what we shot. And then we're gone. A whole story about a family that, just like what we've been sitting here talking about, that feeling you get when you're hunting with your family. Mine was with not just my boys, but with my wife as well. And so we wanted to tell that story. And he was like, dude, I think I can take what you guys have accomplished, what you have over these last 15, 20 years, and put it into a format that we can bring this to life. And so anyhow, we sat down and did it. And so in 2014, Raised Hunting aired for the first time on the Outdoor Channel. And so now we've been at it for 10 years, and it's been truly something pretty special. We captured some unbelievable stuff, and a lot of what people see, they were able to see because we had been filming it going back when these guys are little, like especially Easton. I think some of the episodes we have Easton in there, he's only like 9 or 10 years old. And now people see him, he's 23. And they're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've watched your boys grow up, and doing this stuff. And so it's been for me, it's really special because I look at the Eastman side, and I see what the generational that they've gone on from Gordon Eastman, because I was alive back then. I'm telling my age when like the whole Marty Stauffer and you had all these different entities that were taking different routes. And then the Eastmans went in the hunting industry. And so hopefully someday someone will look back and say, hey, Raised Hunting is something that has continued that on. So that's really in a nutshell how it's all come about, or how we got to where we are today. Pretty neat deal. Pretty neat deal for sure.
Yeah. I mean, when he talks about the video, like he filmed everything, and it was hunting, but it wasn't even just hunting. And so from the time like we were 3, and so he just had tapes and tapes and tapes of, that was back when they were still on a tape.
Truly tapes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was always his cheap labor because I had to go and put them all into a little thing, to be able to transfer them into a digital. And so there was hundreds of them that we had to go do. But, it'd be Christmas, holidays, from the time like I was, you had video from the time that I was 2 or 3.
Oh, before you were even born.
Yeah.
So, that's what I was doing, was capturing the whole thing. And then I'd label it all, this is Warren from 1 year or 1 month old to 12 months old. And then the next time was, a year old to 3 years old. It just depended on what all was going on. Yeah. Our whole life has always been around the outdoors. So it seemed like everything I was filming, if it wasn't them playing a sport, it was them fishing or them hunting or us looking for sheds or us throwing moose poop at each other in the mountains of Montana. It was a natural, that's what we did. And that's what my hat's off to Modern Legacy Productions for what he was able to show me that we could tell a story about, and show people the other side of hunting, that it's not really about killing anything at all. It's about spending time, quality time, and doing what we all love. And it came out that way. But like Warren said, I had no clue that I was filming stuff for television when we were filming our family.
Yeah. Yeah, you could literally go back from like the time I was 2, and there's video of me shooting a bow from the time I'm 2 till 28. And so all of 99% of everything we ever did was on video. At least notable things. So it was pretty crazy to go back and it's still crazy to go back and be able to like relive some of that stuff and your childhood memories, and then seeing them on TV can just be weird sometimes, because people are talking about these videos of you, bugling when you were a little tiny kid and stuff. But other than that, it's been pretty crazy.
It's always tough to watch yourself back or to listen to yourself. And it's it's an exercise to help you get better at whether it's editing or filming or whether it's podcasting, but it's really tough to do. But that's amazing, you guys. It's like, capturing all that footage, you're able to build these storylines, and you're right. Like, people are able to get to know you guys. And like you say, they watch your your sons grow up and watch them make mistakes and be successful, and watch them spend time with their dad, which is so important in like shaping young men, so
Absolutely.
it's great you've been able to have a hand in it, and then to be able to share all these wild experiences together and capture them and put them out to the world. And then I'm sure they like bring a lot to the table, like those that young generation is really good at the technology, like transferring over the tapes to digital, and good for that cheap labor anyways. But yeah, it seems to all work together for you guys to be able to capture these hunts. So what are some of your favorite episodes, or this past season, what are some of the really cool hunts? Like, you guys do a lot of whitetail hunting, right?
We do. We're based out of Iowa now.
Oh,
so
wow.
so we live in what I say is maybe the best whitetail hunting in the world. And because I've hunted in a lot of places that are known. I've hunted Saskatchewan, I've hunted Kansas, some of the other big known states, but where we live is maybe some of the best in the world. This year was truly really special. Two things, I mean, that I would say. One, Warren killed the biggest deer that anyone's killed in the family. And so,
wow, man, kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Out of Dad's stand.
Even better.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, he's been pretty unfortunate the last two. Well, I guess it was 2 years ago, and then this year, he'd even called it on this one. But we had two friends that came out, and they had to go follow up and try and find these 2 deer the next day. And so we were going to take turns, because this was a big. He was right at 190, just under 190. So we're like, for everybody get along, we're gonna. Dad'll hunt him, then I'll hunt him, and Easton's just weird and was doing his own thing, so he didn't care about hunting him, which was fine. We didn't need a third person in the mix,
Yeah.
So we were gonna take turns, and he even made the comment. He's like, "The first south wind that we get, I'm gonna sit in that stand in the timber," which was coming up, and it was on a small piece, so we knew that chances of the deer making it weren't very good, and so and he was 190. We were gonna try to kill him, and so. He had to go and help those 2 guys trying to recover their deer, which they were successful with. But lucky for me, they had to go look for that deer, and I went and sat in that stand in the timber, and here he comes, and I shot him at 6 yards on Dad's day. So I owe him. I told him, I was like, "You got the next 190. Next one's yours. I'm not gonna take him at all." But yeah, that was cool. I think Easton's elk hunt was still there.
I was going to say, but between Warren killing the biggest deer and then Easton's elk hunt getting to go for the first time and being successful, I mean, the whole thing, we were hunting with Primos, who I'd worked with for years. We had Brad Ferris there with us. We had Warren's behind the camera. Easton's shooting. Easton's reaction is probably because he didn't know how he would react. He's killed a lot of deer, but never gotten to hunt an elk. And his reaction is just priceless. So,
it's one of those, like you're talking about, looking back at yourself, that's the only one he hates. It's like, "Oh, I don't want to be in the room when you play that," because he starts hyperventilating, and it's awesome to all of us,
Yeah.
but he hates that one. Yeah. It was super cool, because it was exactly what you'd hope for. We just got into a bugling frenzy, had a big bull come into the right, which I'm glad that one didn't come in, because I think he might have had the biggest bull in the house. And it was like, we can't have that.
Yeah, it was a big
bull, And then that bull comes in and he shoots him at like 26 yards. It was super cool.
As you can tell, we cheer for each other some, but like, we're not cheering for the guy who kills we don't want someone to go out and kill I don't care that he killed the biggest bull, but I wouldn't want it to be his first bull, that we want him to earn it a little bit, so no, it's, and then I don't know that there's one favorite hunt, because I'm hunting with my family, and that would be unfair if I had to pick. People ask that all the time, what's been your favorite hunt? And then I tell them it's all of them. When it comes to hunting with family, it's about who you're with and what you're doing. But the podcast that we're doing now is where we've really realized we're reaching people on another level. Like Warren was saying earlier, these people will write in and say, "Thanks for your tips. I went out and did what you guys did, and I killed my first whitetail," or "I've been hunting for 6 years, couldn't kill a deer. I listened to your guys' podcast and I killed this deer." We don't even realize what we're teaching them. We're just 3 relatives talking about deer hunting, but what comes out is what we're doing, how we're doing it, strategies that we're applying, and things like that. And I don't want to say we take it for granted, because we don't. But we don't realize how in depth we're actually talking about something. And to someone who's a novice, I think we're maybe at one of the greatest eras in life where the learning curve has gotten so much easier for everyone. because it's out there. The podcasts are there, the videos are there. You can see people, and I will say this to the day I die, you learn way more from the mistakes that you make than you ever do the things that you get right. And so people get this, and as long as guys are willing to air that, and we do, we'll air when we make a mistake and let people learn from it. You know, hey, here's a shot we shouldn't have taken. You know, we lost an animal. Here it is. And it's the crummy part of hunting, but this is what, and it's amazing how much people will take that and go, okay, they're not going to make the same mistake you made, so it's cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you guys get this. Like we learn so much. We'll all do some of the same things, but the reason why we're doing them is different. We never even realized that. And sometimes we didn't even realize the things why we were doing them. So until we talk about them in a podcast, and it's kind of, seems odd, but then it's kind of like, oh, well, that's why I'm doing that, but we find that out a lot, that the three of us, we all have a little bit different approach, but a lot of times it's just a different way of getting to the same thing.
Right.
So
yeah, it's that honesty and authenticity, and people really connect with that, and you're right. Like, sometimes we just react and our instincts take over and we do things, but we've all been hunting our whole entire lives, like where it's second nature, and to be able to give somebody a blueprint or a roadmap of how to do things, incredibly useful. And it is the information day and age, but as there's more information out there, it's also competitive out, and the animals are evolving as well and adapting as well. And so it's like, it still isn't easy. And so there's this information out there, but I think the key is the guys that really want to learn, that really take that information, can apply it to their own hunting, can apply it to their own situations and scenarios, and then be able to learn from themselves. And I think they can cut that learning curve by years,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I had the same thing. A guy that came up and said, you helped us kill this mule deer. He said, we spotted it in this drainage, and I knew he was going to bed in his second bed, and we brought him up and around. I knew what the wind was going to do. And then he told his buddy, it's going to stand up. He's going to look around, and then he's going to go to feed, and then you're going to sneak in. And he was able to call it to a T, even though he had never killed a mule deer, but he had heard what the roadmap was. But it's the guys that take it and then really put the work in and the effort in as well, because you can take in this information. It's another thing to go apply it, but we can really learn from everybody out there. Like I learned doing the podcast, and I'm sure you guys pick up stuff doing the podcast as well. And then we're able to educate our audience, and the guys that really want it take that and run with it.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, especially like you guys on the Western side of things, we took it for granted because, well, I'm sure he knew, but I grew up in Montana, and so like you guys know, it's normal to have to put in for tags, and that all these tags are in units and things like that. You get to the Midwest and the east side of the country, that's not how it is. Like you go to the hardware store and you buy your deer tag. And so coming out west, for a lot of those guys, stuff like that you guys do makes their life so much easier, because it's a pretty complicated system. Like when you get apart from it and you're not used to seeing that all the time, it's not a real simple thing. They're like, wait, I can't just put in for the whole state. I can only put in for certain parts of the state, and then that's going to take me this many points, but I can't use these points. I think that's probably you see so many people in Colorado, because they understand I can go to Colorado, I can buy a tag, and I can go hunting, where and that's what they're used to everywhere else. So the learning curve for them on even just getting to a tag is immense.
Yeah, I think it's great too that you guys are pulling for each other's success. It just it's like there's a competitive edge a bit, but it's really fun, like when you have your hunting partners and pulling for their success. And I know Dan, like one of my favorite hunts of his is like his dad drew a really good elk tag, and taking his dad to go kill this bull and hunting with him day after day. And it was a bit of a grind, and they just they killed this immense bull that was bigger than anything Dan had ever killed before at the time, I believe. I mean, don't let me talk for you, but that was a really fun one. You do a good job hunting with family, with your brother, your dad, and then friends. But in life, it's like our family and our friendships are so meaningful, so it's good to put effort into those and really pull for their success. And jealousy really gets us nowhere.
Absolutely.
How big was your dad's bull?
376.
Okay, so he's not quite as big as your other one then.
No,
that must have been before.
Yeah, no, not quite as big. Yeah,
it was before your big one.
It was,
right?
Yeah, it was before. Yep.
You guys are
Yeah.
killing slammers.
Yeah, no, we've had a good few years, and it's just, listening to you guys talk. I haven't said much this podcast, I guess, but it's fun to listen. But growing up, that's my background and my memories, and that's what I go back to. And life is different now. Like, I don't hunt as much with my dad and brother like I used to, but we grew up antelope hunting every year. We go to Eastern Montana ever since I can remember.
Yeah.
That's what we did all the time. We did everything together, fishing and hunting, and filmed everything.
Right.
And, the last 15 years, I haven't really hunted a lot with my dad and brother just because of work, right? So I'm doing this for work. I have my hunts that I'm doing. I'm filming. And so I've kind of gone down this different path. And so when you do get a hunt with your family again, whether it's my dad or my brother, it's been a long time since we've all hunted together. But those are the experiences. Those are the hunts that I'll take to my deathbed that I'll really remember, because it just means so much to me, because that's the cloth I was cut from, was hunting with family. And so, like, I think that's one of the only hunts that I truly shed a tear on. It was my dad's first bull.
That's so cool.
And that's one thing I wanted to do. He's getting older, and I was like, I want to, elk hunting's my passion. I want to share that with you and see you harvest a good bull. His goal is 330, and he's like, I just want one to mount. And I was like, well, I think we can probably find a nice 6-point for you to mount. And then we go out there and shoot a Boone and Crockett bull.
Yeah.
And it's just like, he cried and I cried, and it's silly, right? Maybe to most people, but it just resonates with me because of how far we've gone back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my other favorite hunt was with my brother. I don't get to hunt with my brother a lot, but he drew a tag in Montana and he arrowed a 376 bull. Not kidding. Same size as my dad's. And we have the same camaraderie, and we're jabbing each other, and they're like, well, you're the elk guy and we got bigger bulls than you now. And it's like, I never really dwell on score or anything.
Yeah.
But, one of my goals in life was to make sure my dad and brother got a Boone and Crockett bull.
Yeah.
Just because I just love elk. Once again, score really doesn't matter, but it's just like that goal that is up there that you're probably not going to reach unless you're lucky, but it's something to shoot for, right?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of superstitious too, so I don't like to talk about stuff like that, but that's been a goal in my life, is
I'm super superstitious, so you're good on
no,
that.
I think all bow hunters are, right? You have to be.
I
right?
think
Absolutely.
because so much of it you don't have any control over.
Yes.
You can do everything. All of us do that's what we're talking about, is we prepare for these hunts. We go on these hunts. We're trying to do everything we can to put as much in our favor, because we know we're entering a place where the animal's at the advantage. We're entering their bedroom. We're entering their living room, and we got to try to trick them at their own game, especially with a bow and arrow. We're trying to get in close and do things like that. So it's just, but I guess listening to you talk about your dad, and that probably is one of the episodes that it wasn't the episode. It turned out to be an episode, but we did have an opportunity where, and we're not waterfowl hunters, but it was a way for us to take my dad and 3 generations to be there hunting together.
Wow.
And it's the only time that we got to do that. So we went on a duck hunt in Arkansas. We didn't kill hardly any ducks, but seeing my dad pull the trigger on a shotgun, trying to kill a duck, and these guys there and us joking and everything. And, that'll always be, because hunting's such a big part of our life, that will always be a memory that will be, it's up and above everything else. Can't even describe it, can't put it into words. And like I said, it wasn't that we were all there because we were trying to kill a Boone and Crockett duck. It just wasn't what we were looking for, but just getting to be there as family, and I'm waiting for the day when these guys, Warren's getting ready to get married. So I'm kind of airing him out here. So he gets married in June. So one day I will have grandkids, and hopefully we'll get to do the 3-generation thing again, so there's something about what you're talking about, and I get it. I know that feeling, what it feels like to be able to give back, whether it's a brother or a sister or a mom or daughter, or,
it's funny because those hunts like that, like a size of bull it's not the focus.
Absolutely.
You're never I'm so thankful to be able to hunt with them. And so of all the hunts that I ever do, I'm never thinking about a score or shooting a giant bull. just a good experience with my family. But those are the hunts, it seems like, that they pan out and you kill a giant.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't explain it.
Yeah.
Like, why did that happen? Is it it's a God thing? But why? We didn't deserve it. We earned it. We spent our time out there and we earned it, but it was never a focus. And we've talked about this quite a bit with bow hunting, and it's just so weird. There's like the supernatural or whatever that you can't control, but it's almost like the harder you want something and the harder you go out there and try, the worse off you end up, or the more you fail. And so you get to a point in your life or your career, and it's almost like, you know, the process now, and now we can just let things happen. And it seems like if you can just relax a little bit and believe in the process and trust in your process, things just kind of fall in place.
Yeah, you take that pressure off, and all of a sudden it
That's
just
what it
becomes
is.
easy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and or maybe it's just that you start to focus and take in the little things, so it doesn't, whatever happens really doesn't matter. You know, you can blow a tire and the whole trip is messed up, or, you know, the propane goes out on a heater or something like that, and all of a sudden it's just, you know, it's still fun. You're still there with the right people, and you know, it really doesn't matter. But then all of a sudden, God lays all these things in order, because now you're late to go hunting the next day. You end up going to a drainage you didn't think you were going to go to. They're never in there. And all of a sudden one's in there and he walks in front of somebody, and, you know, it's like, where did this come from? How did this happen? We would have never done this. Even with all the preparation, we would have never done it this way. And then that's when it comes through, you know? And so, yeah, no, I agree with you 100%.
And I think that's a biggest appeal, or one of the largest appeals to me with hunting, is you can't master it. You're never, like, every hunt is so different, and you go back and look at them, you're like, man, you can't explain how this just happened, because of events that happened during the course of a hunt. And it's just like, every hunt I sit back and I reflect on it, and usually I'm just like in awe, or like in shock, or just like shake my head and be like, man, I just love this life, or I love this lifestyle, love this sport, whatever you want to call it, because of instances like that.
Yeah. When you continue to work hard, you continue to grind, put effort forth, but you're right, as you just let things develop in front of you. And so my early years, so goal driven, or wanted to kill this big bull or this big buck. And you're right, you're almost pushing so hard where you're walking by opportunities,
forcing things.
Yeah, for sure. But and I think it's part of it. It's like the enjoyment is in the process and doing it. The enjoyment is not sitting over a big bull or a big buck. Sure, that's the culmination of all your hard work, and it's beautiful when it comes together. But, you know, I tell people, like, I'm just really good at getting lucky. It's like, but you put in all this work and effort, and pretty soon you put yourself out there and you get this opportunity, and then you get really good at closing those opportunities or seizing that moment, you know? And I just think, like, it's so fun to be on these hunts that you just really want to soak them in no matter what happens. And the more challenges and the more things that go wrong, the tougher the hunt is, the more I'm going to remember it in the end.
Absolutely.
Yep. We're at the expo, so somebody lost their keys here.
I think I've got to figure out how to not care so much about finding an 80.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're trying to find an 80-inch whitetail side, 180-inch shed, you know,
I've been
and
obsessed with it.
we've killed, what, 8 deer that have 80-inch sides?
Wow.
Probably.
Between the two of us, you know, but we've never found a shed from one of them. And so Warren's like, yeah, my goal is the same. I'd like to break the 80 mark, but he's got a little more of an obsession than I do.
Yeah, good for you. I think being obsessed, you do get results, but it is like this fine line. You do have to enjoy it along the way, you know? And whitetail hunting is like so tricky. Like those animals are so cagey and crafty, and especially when they get that older age class, and they're so good at living in such a small area and going undetected. It takes so much work and research, and a whitetail grind is different than a Western grind.
100%.
A whitetail grind is like spending the time. It's spending the time day after day in that stand. It's studying the trail cameras, trying to put yourself in that right position or situation where, you know, the elk grind or the Western grind is miles and elevation and glassing, and you're also spending time. Do you think those skills of hunting whitetails and honing those over the years really transposes well to like hunting out west?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, a lot of people don't. The Western guys don't like to hear turkeys compared to elk.
That's our worst comparison.
Yeah, but it's really so similar. You know, if someone loves turkey hunting, they're probably going to love elk hunting. And believe it or not, if guys that elk hunt would ever go try to turkey hunt, they'd find that it's very similar. The only thing is you can throw them over your shoulder and walk out.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of easier stuff. But I guess for me, the place where I think that I'm so fortunate, and this is one of those things, I'm 55 now, and I got a lot more life than a lot of other people to look back on in a hunting career. And that is, I've lived in 4 states. I grew up in Virginia. I lived in Arkansas for 4 years, got in the fire service there. Then I lived in Montana for almost 20 years, and now we reside in Iowa. I feel like I appreciate each piece that much more because I like what Warren was talking about, the Midwest and the Eastern guys. They don't know the West. I didn't know the West when I moved to the West, you know, but I got to learn it, and I had to learn it. I had to go through the grinding. I had to learn how to, because when I first moved there, I knew nothing. It was all public land. So it was walk, and then walk some more, and then walk some more to realize you're walking in the wrong area. You know, you need to find the places where you can go that you don't have to work like this hard. And then what I found was that the more effort you put in, I think the part, I guess, that I look at is when you meet that guy or that gal that is consistent, that's when you know you found someone that's really kind of honed in on hunting. And it's not the person that's killed the biggest bull or the biggest whitetail deer one time. It's the guy that's doing, or the guy or the gal. I say gal because there's so many more women out there hunting now, but they're doing it consistently. And that's what I have always strived to be. And that's what I was trying to raise these guys to do was, okay, so here's what we're doing. You know, we're going deer hunting or we're going elk hunting. And so all my deer hunting applications applied to when I got out west, you know, and the turkey hunting and everything all culminated. And then what you take from elk hunting, I mean, the grind is different, but it's the same, meaning it's hard to go up a mountain day after day, go camp at the bottom of it, or you're hunting 8,000 feet. But it's also hard to go and sit in a stand and not move, you know, for 8 hours a day. And so it's a different difficulty, but it's so worth it. That's the whole thing that it comes back to me. I don't care whether you're hunting Arkansas, Virginia, Montana, or wherever. If you truly love what you're doing, it's so worth that few seconds when you finally have that opportunity. And for me, I even look at it's the opportunities that were lost that probably mean the most. The one that got away is sometimes the best memory ever, you know, because it kind of lets you down a little bit. I mean, like the deer Warren shot this year, we knew that deer for 3 years. He kills a 190-inch deer. Well, after you shoot that deer, you go back to check trail cameras, you're not going to find him on that trail camera anymore, you know? And there's a part of you that kind of feels bad. You're like, gosh, dang, you know, because you got so used to doing that, so used to looking for him, you know, and you want to grab that pinnacle. But it's just, I wish there was someone that could do a better job than me to describe how hunting gets so deeply rooted in your soul and in your veins and what it does for you, you know, and what it does for you as a family.
Yeah.
Well, what now?
It's beautiful. Go ahead.
Well, I think he may just give me an epiphany because him and I are kind of opposite as far as he's an unbelievable elk hunter. You're a pretty decent deer hunter, but elk hunter, like
you're crappy deer hunter.
He's not crappy deer hunter, but he cares more about deer than he does elk. And I care more. Like if you told me you got one animal for the rest of your life to hunt, I'm taking elk every day, all day. You know. Now, like, unless there's some stipulations of you get to 70, you can't hunt anymore. Like, maybe now I'll go whitetail. Like, whitetail guys hate me because I'm like, I'll tell them, like, you know, they're all about, oh, we're going to sit all day and stuff. I am not sitting all day. You know, I'm like 2 hours and we're going to lunch, you know, or whatever, because I just can't sit still that long. You know, even if we're seeing deer, elk hunting is, to me, it's like, it's just the coolest thing. But, like, he just has some ability with elk that I can't explain. I've never seen anything like it. I just have to give you an example. We were elk hunting in Montana, and we'd been sitting on we'd go up in the morning and we'd sit on the top of this peak and we'd wait for these elk to come back out of where all these places they were feeding and stuff. And typically we'd sit there, hour or two, and there'd be elk, right? And then we'd go and we'd do whatever. But one morning we're up there and it was like 9:30, 10, no elk. I was like, all right, you want to go somewhere else or do something else? And he's like, no, we just need to sit here. And I was like, okay. And so we sit there till 11, no elk, and I'm like, they're all bedded. And I was like, we going to go get lunch now or what are we doing? And he's like, no, we just need to sit here. And 12. And I was like, okay, like, really, what are we doing now? Like, what? And he's like, no, just hold on. 12:30, here comes 100 elk. 100 elk come over this mountain, go out in this path, or just on into a valley, and we go around and we go and shoot one. And I'm like, how the frick did you know that? He goes, I don't know, I just had a feeling. I was like, where could you get a feeling from that? And so now is what I'm wondering is he doesn't care as much about killing an elk. It's kind of like, yeah, we're gonna go kill one, and it's at some point, and it's gonna be just fine. Where his deer, you care pretty hard about killing his deer. And so sometimes he had one deer he killed that we called Juice. He's right at 180, but he's 170-inch 8. So he's a pretty unbelievable deer. And so far, that's the only animal I've ever seen that rattled him, right? Where he was making rookie mistakes. And that's the only one I've seen. Because usually he may not be like the best guy on the range shooting his bow. But when it comes to animals, and dad gets a shot, that animal's in trouble. I always know, he's dead, right? Well, Juice just... some of the stuff I was like, what are we doing, Dad? Like, shoot, he had one time where he went right through an alley and should have shot him at 30 yards. And he just spaced a little bit. And I think just because Juice just would get him rattled, and we ended up killing him, but after a whole bunch of encounters. And I just wonder now if some of maybe that's what some of the difference is you care more about killing the deer, where the elk
Certainly could be.
You're not as concerned about it, and so it just happens.
Sometimes I can outthink myself.
Oh yeah,
or second guess, or if I'm here, I should be there instead of just being present in that moment. And I consider myself a good elk hunter. I kill a good 6-point every year, arrow them with my bow, kill them self-guided public land. But I got this other buddy that man, it's like everywhere he walks, he gets into elk, and we hunt together a bunch. And, he'll even give me the choice. Oh, you want to go high or you want to go low or right or left? It's wherever he goes, he just gets into bull. Like he's got really good instincts, and he trusts his gut when he makes a decision. And I think a lot of this hunting, is honing these instincts, but really believing in your decisions, believing in your gut, having a feeling that you want to go there, and then going there and finding them. And then when you do go in an area or you're sitting in a stand, don't be thinking about the other stand or how you messed up or the drainage you should have gone up. It's like, I'm here right now. I'm going to put all my focus into this drainage this morning. I'm going to see if I can't turn one up. And if not, then I'll recalibrate and I'll go somewhere else tonight, but really being in that present moment. But I think those instincts play such a huge role in our success, as hunters out there, both for whitetails or elk or, whatever
Absolutely.
It applies to,
Yeah.
We just did a podcast on that, talking about a hunter's instinct or a hunter's gut. You get that feeling. And like when he's talking about that day with the elk, I just had a feeling they're going to be here. Just try to be patient, just be patient and they'll be here. Give them time.
You ever had that? I know you're superstitious, but where day we're talking we not even know that we know that we're going to get into elk or deer or whatever it is, that we know. You don't ever say it, but it's I'm probably getting a shot today, and it's a 90%. Have you guys had that feeling?
All the time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
See, we think it's legit.
Yeah. Anytime hunting, especially with elk, if they're around, I'll sit there all day. I mean, if there's no action, I don't have any place to be. You got to, my theory is when you're out there, I just think about elk when I'm out there. I'm like, what do they have to do? They don't have anything to do today. They're going to get up on their feet maybe an hour before dark and feed all night. And they're going to wander back to bed. Some days there might be more rutting activity than others. Who knows? We'll see based on estrus, right? But other than that, if I'm in the zone, I'll sit there all day and just believe. I believe in the process. I believe that, I'm in the right place because they're around. And a lot of times that's the best thing you can do.
Absolutely.
Just keep sitting. Keep sitting. Where else we got to be? I don't have any other place to be. I'm not in a hurry. Mm-hmm. And I think that is an Achilles heel, and we've talked about this a lot on podcasts. Like, it's so hard for hunters to be able to go from like a normal life in modern America where it's like instant gratification, fast, fast, fast. I got this to do, to go hunting and turn that off and just slow down the thoughts, slow down the process. Is it worth it to me to hike 3 miles or 3 hours in the dark to get to a spot back there because I think there's going to be elk back there? Or should I just start hunting from daylight because I could run into an elk because I saw, a wallow over here right behind camp? You just never know. So it's like I've heard so many stories of guys just overthinking it and trying too hard almost.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And they get up somewhere and Billy Bob at the trailhead shoots a 190 mule deer from his truck at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yep.
That stuff happens all the time because guys are overthinking and like maybe trying too hard. So like these are the things I think about over the last decade of day after day in the field, like just getting philosophical with it, I guess. But
your whitetail guys, they get high blood pressure.
Yeah.
Because, well,
Oh, yeah.
I know, I'm sure it's somewhat similar in the West, but these guys, they're getting a picture of the deer all the time, right? They're getting on their cell phone, getting a picture of him all the time. They've known him for 3 years. They found him some of his sheds, and they build a relationship with these individual deer, and they get literally obsessed. And like, so that's where whitetail world is terrible, of someone shot my deer, and it like kills them inside. And so like we've got some buddies where I'll tell them like, dude, you need to chill. It is just a deer at the end of the day, because they'll be so stressed during hunting season. I haven't had a picture of him 2 days. I think he got poached. And I'm like, relax. He's out chasing some tail, like
Yeah.
I promise you it's all right, and I think that's part of the reason that him and Easton both care way more about whitetails than I do. But I'm always the lucky one, and I don't really. They all summer they put in a ton of time. They get pictures. They go do everything. They go put in the prep, and I go in and sit in a stand usually and have a pretty good deer come by and shoot it. and that's probably why, because I'm good with it either way. I had one deer 2 years ago. I told my camera guy, I was like, we're gonna chase this one, and really the only reason I pick out one of the biggest ones that I can, but really the only reason I'm doing that is because I just don't want to be done that fast. He's either big enough that I'm good with being done early, or we'll hunt all season and it's all right. We get to chase a big one, and I really don't care. I honestly don't care if I kill him or not. And I think a lot of times it works out because I don't care that much. We're like my little brother. He's got some goals set right now that he wants to hit, and he is working really, really, really hard. And it's just like kicking him in the teeth, it is interesting when you really think about that. It's such a odd balance in that of like, you got to work hard, but are you working too hard? I guess it's just enjoying the process of it.
Yeah.
Dude, it's such a fine line, isn't it? Because you can't put zero effort in and expect to be
Right.
successful.
Yeah.
You can't,
Yeah.
not put the time into developing your skills and your shooting and your research, and like all that stuff matters, but yeah, you can almost be driving or pushing too hard to where you're walking by opportunities. But yeah, it's strange. I think for me, it's like, I believe in my skills as a bow hunter now, and I've got it done on enough species and enough different habitats and enough different places. And I've had the deck stacked against me so many times when it felt like mission impossible. And I keep putting forth effort. I keep theorizing, trying to make my best moves. But I also, if I have a close call, like you were talking about, you're saying like, the close calls that I don't kill them mean the most. Like if I get a close call, that's why I bow hunt. For me, I'll walk away and go, that was worth the price of admission.
Absolutely.
That was worth driving 20 hours down here, spending a week off work, chasing these animals. I had that close call and he was right there, and man, that was close, but wasn't that fun? Like that is why I bow hunt, that intense predator-prey relationship. So I enjoy it, but I just know eventually I'm going to get an opportunity, and I'm good enough at closing those opportunities that I'm going to arrow a buck or arrow a bull. And, you get these seasons, or you get where it does feel like everything you do is wrong, or you have these hurdles you come up against and it's just not coming together. But even in a tough season. Like I have had my best season of my life every year for the last 20 years. It's like I never have a bad season. It always works out. And even last season, I started with a couple early season high country deer hunts. I started with a goat hunt, able to arrow goat in BC, but I burned a bunch of my time in BC. So then I'm trying to rush to these deer hunts, and I'm not dedicating the right time to scouting, to hunting, to the process. And I'm going down and I'm trying to get it done in this short amount of time, and I come up short. And then elk season last year around the 10th, it went off, and there's bulls everywhere. So I lined up my cameraman. I've got him for 6-7 days, shows up at the 10th. And I mean, we hardly heard a bugle to the 15th, 16th. It was just the conditions, So here I am, I've come up short on 2 good high country mule deer, come up short on my elk hunt with my cameraman. But I just believe. I know my skills as a bow hunter. I know it's going to pay off. It wasn't but a few days later, arrow a good bull, had an epic late season, killed a couple great mule deer bucks like that. That work and that effort pays off, but you can't get you can't get so like caught up in it to where it grabs a hold of you, where you start believing that narrative that you are a bad bow hunter, you're not a great elk hunter, or this season just isn't going to come together. Instead, I just keep believing. It's like, eventually I'll get my chance. Eventually it'll come together. And it like always seems to fall in place every year. It's like, I have failures and I have successes, but every year is epic for me,
I think there's something to be said though, for all that effort that you're talking about, like in the summertime. I enjoy that effort.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. That's part of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, hunting for me, I always describe as it's like a chess game. But the chess game doesn't start the morning that I'm going out to sit in the stand for the first time. That chess game started months ago. Yeah. And it's the same for elk. It's in a different way. If I'm going elk hunting, I'm on a treadmill. I'm working, I'm running. I know what I'm going to be facing. I'm mentally trying to force myself to understand it's going to be long, hard days that probably, especially the way we hunt them, are dependent on where you're hunting them. I don't know that I've ever seen an easy elk hunt. Once in a while, someone kills one on opening day, and that's just because you earned that last year and the year before that, and the year before that, when it took you 20 some days to kill one. So be it that one day you kill one on opening day. So
Dan's an opening day. He always gets him opening day. But you're right. It's because of his work he's put in.
Absolutely.
And because of his timing in the elk woods and his knowledge of elk. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. Yeah. I mean, but so to me, it's part of it. I mean, the hunting started way before that. It's been the whole element of it, of getting to know the ground, whether it's hanging a tree stand, whether it's there's no place to put a tree stand. I got to put a ground blind in here. Okay, where am I going to put this ground blind? How am I going to work this in there? Do I need to put it in now? Can I wait? What can we do to a food plot? Can we manipulate that food plot? Can we change this or change that? And then like I said, when we're talking about elk or turkeys or whatever, what pack am I going to use? What optics am I going to take? What am I going to spot and stalk, or am I going to use my calls? And then it changes. Then you get there and then God throws some curveball at you, that the weather does something that you never expected, or people come from some place that you never expected. And now you're doing something completely different in an area that you never expected.
Yeah.
So,
and it's a labor of love too,
absolutely.
Right? And it's the harder we work towards our goals, the more they mean when we achieve them. So putting in all this work and living this bow hunting lifestyle 365 and keeping tabs on all these different elements. Like when you finally accomplish your goal, it's like riding a roller coaster. Yeah, it's fun, but you don't go home and think about that roller coaster you ride. But when you put everything into this Western hunt and you grind for 10 days and you come out on top with a bull, or even not with a bull, when you come home, that's all you can think about is that hunt and doing it again and climbing that Everest again. So it's a labor of love, and you start to realize that the fun isn't in, like, the fun's in killing them for sure and getting close, but the fun's in the journey and the process and the work towards these goals, and then having it come together. And then it just means the world to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I went on a first high country mule deer hunt this year.
Nice.
And it was, which Ike gave me a little bit of insight, not very much, but a little. and so I really had no idea what I was doing, kind of went in blind. I was expecting to draw Wyoming and then didn't, but fortunately I had this Colorado tag, and, so I didn't have a lot of time to prep for it, but I was hoping that I was going to be able to find mule deer that weren't at 11,000 feet. Well, it didn't take us long. It took us about 2 days and realized all of the mule deer are at 11, 12,000 feet. So that's where we started spending our time. But the amount that we were able to learn, I ended up shooting a deer. I didn't kill him, unfortunately. I hit him a little too high. He ducked, and I made a bad shot. But according to Ike, he's about 160-inch deer. And it was amazing because we were going every day, you know. We finally found these deer at the high country, and we would start to get a little bit of an understanding. Okay, now we're finding some does, but now we're finding deer consistently every day, you know. And at first I thought you could like hike the tops of those ridges and glass down into like that buckbrush stuff and find deer. And then I realized you can't. Like once they're bedded in it, they were gone. They would just disappear. And so you had to find them in the morning or in the evening. And so we had this one spot though where we kept going to that there was just a pile of deer, but we couldn't find hardly any bachelor groups, right? And so I told my camera guys, like, next day we're gonna go, there's like one other little ridge you go back about another mile and a half, and then there was like another, it looked like more parks, you know, and the same kind of buckbrush stuff that all these deer were on. I was like, there's no way with all these other deer that are here, you know, and they're not going very far. That was the thing I kept telling me. He's like, you got to find them wherever they are, wherever they're at. And he's like, they're not traveling very far. So once you find them there, they'll be there. He's like, well, there's all these other deer here. There's bucks here somewhere. We just haven't found them yet. And so he was getting a little discouraged. We get back there that morning, and I was like, there's gonna be a buck here. There's gonna be a group of bucks here somewhere, and we're gonna find one, and we're gonna go kill it. And sure enough, we're sitting there glassing, and I told him, because it's been like 4 or 5 days of, you know, just trying to find a buck that was worth shooting. And then I told him, I was like, you're not gonna believe it. And he's like, what? And I was like, I see a shooter. And we found like a bachelor group of 7-8 bucks, a couple nice deer, I mean, to me. And then the biggest one was like 160-inch deer. And we ended up putting a stock on him. It was about a mile loop. We were really sucking wind. It was because he didn't bed till like 1:30. It was weird. It was just always standing up, just moving around, bedding. And so then I was really nervous. You know, I was like, this deer's not going to stay bedded very long. And so we beat feet around there as fast as we could. But then sure enough, we managed to come over the top, and he wasn't bedded, but he must have just got up because he hadn't moved but a few yards. And I shot him at like 34 yards. And so that hunt, you know, technically it was a failure, but at the same time, I loved it. I thought it was a super success because I went from having zero knowledge and no idea what I was doing to taking the little elements and putting those things together. I was like, okay. I mean, it was down to I don't even know what they're eating. Like every time I'm seeing deer, they're in this buckbrush stuff. There's something to this buckbrush, right? Every time I'm seeing deer, they're at least 11,500 feet. You know, there's something to that. And just putting those things together at the end of it, I was like, man, we learned a lot, you know, and then we managed to put it all together and still get within 35 yards of a decent deer and get an arrow off. The only thing I did is I failed on the shot. But other than that, like, I feel like we could go back next year, you know, we could get into a good deer. So that to me was a super successful hunt.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I see is that, you know, that you're truly passionate about it when, no matter how hard it is, no matter how down you feel about it, it's just a little bit of time and you're ready to go again. You know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times elk hunting is probably number one where you're physically and mentally exhausted. You've put, I don't know, for some people it might be different amount of days, but you've got 4 or 5 days of just solidly going at it, you know, lots of miles on your boots and mentally preparation, very little sleep. You're going till dark and trying to get back. And then you're thinking, why do I do this to myself? You know, and then you get extra hour of sleep one morning or whatever, and you can't wait to get back out there. You know, I mean, it's the whole thing. And then the same thing, like what you were talking about, it might not be the next day. It could be the next year. You know, I mean, like with what Warren just was talking about. Yeah, you didn't come away with a deer, but at the same time, you're already looking forward to going back and applying what you learned to do it again.
I love solving the puzzle of these different species, these different places, like you did with the mule deer, like showing up, having a little bit of knowledge that you've seen or heard or how you think it's going to go, but then being able to pick up the breadcrumbs along the way. Like, oh, I'm down low and I don't see any bucks. There's just does down here. Okay, I do have to go higher. I thought I could find them lower, but okay, we'll go higher. And then, you know, starting to pick up deer and going, well, buck's got to be up here somewhere, and keep glassing and diligent, putting on miles and elevation. All of a sudden, there's a buck. Okay. Well, now I know. Now we need to put together a stalk. He hasn't bedded down till 1:30, and okay, I think he's going to stay put in those shadows. Let's make our big play around. But to be able to learn so much, or to be a student of the game, it's like you can have these preconceived notions of how you think a hunt's going to go, but until you get there and you start really figuring it out and solving this puzzle of where those game animals are at, because in these units, it's not game animals spread throughout the unit. They're in these pockets of country. And so you got to figure out those pockets of country they're in, and then be able to put together a game plan or a blueprint of how you're going to get close. And it's always like so difficult. Like I think, I'm going to go muley hunting and kill a buck. And then I get there and the ground's crunchy, or I have no wind noise and it's really silent. And so you have like all these problems or hurdles that come up where creative thinking is rewarded, and then once you can solve that puzzle, and like you say, it may be that year, it may be later in the hunt, or this may be a multi-year process, and you may kill a 200-inch deer next year that this hunt led to that hunt. The knowledge that you gain led to that successful hunt. So you're never sure where it's going to end up. But I just think being a student of the game and this critical thinking, this problem solving, it's like such a good exercise for us. And I think it's part of the reason why we love it so much, is it is so difficult. It isn't easy. And when it does come together, you've really done something.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
You're talking about the instant gratification. That's what I think part of what I love, especially about Western hunting, is when you have no phone service, is the simplicity of it. You have one goal. Now, there's a lot of factors in there, but I'm just trying to find an animal and then get within bow range.
Yeah.
I love that. It's like, what? Maybe there's not as many, I don't have as many problems as I thought I did, The world's pretty small when you're out there doing that.
Yeah, 100%.
A big thing too, as I'm dying here, I don't know, got a tickle in my throat. Man, get me. But what I do a lot too, like kind of those little details that you observed on that hunt, write that stuff down, keep a log. I used to do that, and I still do it with elk based on the date. Like, how much estrus did I see? How much rut activity did I see? On this date, at this elevation, on this hunt, in this state. You do that for several years, you start building these correlations, and you start to see trends.
Yeah.
And especially with mule deer, it's super helpful for the future.
Yeah.
And you could go back there next year, and there's nothing at that elevation.
Yeah.
Because of green up or the winter or current conditions or the monsoons. There's all these other factors that are out of your control that the deer or elk on an elk hunt, they could be doing something completely different the next year.
Yeah.
So I love, and probably whitetail guys, I love whitetail. I don't really consider myself a whitetail guy, but there's a lot of science to that too, I believe. And are you guys like writing down, barometric pressure, on days that you're seeing a lot of activity? Excuse me. Are you writing down all these details?
We keep track of everything.
Everything, right?
I mean, to the moon phases and stuff like that. But to some stuff, though, that will debunk that. We'll be like, okay, it's not really having a factor, and you keep track of it because it's like, okay, but it's not really making a difference. It's one of those things where, like, the people that say, it's going to be 90 degrees tomorrow, there's no point in going sitting in a stand. Yes, there is, because you can't kill them if you don't go there, and they'll do something. They're still there. They're still an animal. They still got to feed. They still got to get water. They still got to breed if it's during the rut and stuff like that. So things will change. Warren's really good about one of the things, and there's more than just on X, but he keeps a ton of stuff in on X, marking stuff where he's been, where he got there, how he got there, what the elevation was, where he found a shed or where he saw something. So there's all kinds of applications out there that you can help a guy,
That's what I was going to ask. Are you using an app or something for your notes, or are you legit old school writing it down?
I have a journal, like a working document, like on Google Drive.
Okay.
And I'll like start with my year and, with the state or what hunt. And,
yeah.
For sure.
That's one of the few things I have a exceptional memory on. Like the hunting things, I can pretty much remember every day, the temperature, all that off the top of my head. But I need whitetails and everything, elk too. All the Western stuff, I need to really do a good job of noting all of those things. be better. I'd rather like buy your data because you have a much bigger data set than I have. You know, mine's gonna be like, well, I got 1 year to go off of here. So I think that the amount you just learn from those different things is unbelievable.
It's very interesting to me. Different mountain ranges, different states, different regions, the rut activity. I love elk. I just love hunting and just like geek out about all these little things like that. Yep. But I find that very interesting.
Well, especially when you're talking about that, because that's a time of their pattern, you know. So there's going to be some differentiator of why they're doing something different.
I mean, one of the big ones for whitetails though we have corn and beans, and those rotate, and you'll see that one farm's doing X 1 year, and it's like if you didn't pay a lot of attention, the next year it's not doing the same thing. Kind of what you're talking about. Well, it's because there's a different agriculture piece there, you know, or then they take it completely out and turn it into alfalfa, and you think, oh no, they've changed the whole thing, changes it for the better, you know, or sometimes it changes it for the worse, and you know, and then don't waste your time. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I think that hunters are really good at adapting.
Yeah,
you got to
resourcefulness.
So absolutely.
True. Yeah, have to be able to adapt, evolve, and overcome, and it may not be. No scenario is going to be exactly the same, but it's going to rhyme with other scenarios you've had go down, you know,
sure.
and knowledge that you gain. It may not be the exact same in a different mountain range, but you can take that knowledge and transpose it to that mountain range and use it to try to dial it in and figure it out. So, it's been so fun, like comparing notes, being able to meet both you guys and like hearing your passion and knowledge come out. So yeah, I can't wait to check out the show, check out the podcast. So I just really appreciate you guys taking the time and joining Dan and I on the podcast.
No, thank you guys for having us, man. We sure appreciate it. So yeah, you can find, but I guess the little plug that we'll do is that raisedhunting.com. You can find everything except for the Raised Hunting podcast. It's separate. We moved it to itself, so you can go on YouTube and find it's under the Raised Hunting podcast. So.
Cool. We'll put a link up and then put it in on the intro. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you guys. We really appreciate it.
Yep.